Hello, I am Jamie from Stonemeyer Games, and I'm joined today by my coworker Susannah to talk about our favorite art in tabletop games. Susannah, thanks so much for joining me for today for this.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
I love art in games. I spend a lot of time thinking about like what aesthetic is right for our games, and whenever I discover a game where the art just brings me into that world, it makes me happy. It really does enhance the experience for me.
I agree. And Wingspan, was my entree into gaming, and the art was a huge piece of that. So I generally need the art to grab
Hmm.
me for a game to be something I want to play again and again. And I know that's not always the case for some people, and that's okay.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. But it definitely is for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the art makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
So we each have a top 5 list that we'll present today, and I limited it by games in my collection so I could actually hold up the game. And
Mhm.
really, I needed some form of limitation because there's so many games with beautiful, evocative art.
I agree.
Um,
I
did you
have
restrict
all
it
of my
yeah,
games as
you did.
well.
Okay. Maybe not entirely the case for my honorable mentions, but at least for my top 5. Do you have some? Actually, I'll throw out the ambassador picks first. I
Perfect.
asked ambassadors for their favorite artist, not necessarily their favorite game, and these are some of the artists they mentioned: Andrew Bosley, Beth Sobel, Mr. Cuddington, which is a husband-wife team, Sandara Tang, Ian O'Toole, Jakub Rozalski, Manny Trembley, Kwanchai Moriya, Kyle Ferrin, Ryan Laukat, the Mico, Vincent Dutrait, and Natalia and Anna, who are known for Wingspan.
Great.
Those are the ambassador picks. What are your honorable mentions, Susannah?
Should I mention the artists or the games, do you think?
Either, both, well,
Okay.
whatever you have
Yeah.
handy. Yeah.
I just put mine in alphabetical order. So Apiary, who's made the art is made by Kwanchai Moriya, Cat Lady, Josh Wood, Floriferous, Clementine Camperdew, Herbaceous by Beth Sobel, Meadow, Carolina Kiak, Monsdrawsity, which is a variety of artists, Skoventyr, Vincent Dutrait did the art for that one. Tapestry is Andrew Bosley, and then Wingspan is Natalia and Anna.
It's a great list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really I'm excited about your list, Susannah, because you picked from a pretty wide variety of artistic styles, which I think
Mhm.
speaks to how different styles can fit a game perfectly and can bring it to life.
Absolutely.
My
What
honorable
are
mentions, yeah, I have Parks, Honeybuzz, the Guild of Merchant Explorers, Sulkin, Dog Park, Architects of the West Kingdom, and Mysterium Park. I don't
fun?
have all those artists handy, but a few of them. Like Architects of the West Kingdom is the Mico, Parks is the 59 Parks project.
Mhm.
Yeah, a pretty broad variety of art there.
Absolutely.
Um,
And actually, I
yeah,
like that you have the Guild of Merchant Explorers on there because it's very subtle, but it really
yeah,
is wonderful as well. At first, it doesn't look like it looks fairly beige, but then you get into it
right.
and there's all this subtle detail on all of the maps. And yeah, I think it's wonderful. So art
And
doesn't have
I
to
love
just
a good like
grab you right
fantasy
away,
map.
but you can really
Yeah,
like learn over time, like, oh, I love the jellyfish map and I love all the little
right.
details and I love all the little mushrooms and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that style of maps. Like when I open
Mhm.
a fantasy book and I see a beautiful map at the beginning, it brings me into the world right away. And I think Guild of Merchant Explorers does that with at least 4 different maps in the core game.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a
Yeah.
great game.
It's a great game too. Yeah. Yeah, and we'll factor that in a little bit today. We'll focus maybe a little bit on the art, but also how the art specifically brings us into that specific game. Um,
Exactly.
I'd love to hear your number 5, Susannah.
Great. It's in your honorable mentions. It's Parks by Keymaster Games.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, the artists are from this, I don't know if it's a collective or just a group of artists. I know they're out of Austin, Texas, and it's called the 59 Parks series. And they are a bunch of printmakers who decided to re-implement the style of the old WPA park posters that were made in the 30s after the Great Depression to get people excited about the national parks. So these artists, and there are tens, dozens, I don't know, many artists have created these beautiful tarot-sized cards that are, landscapes and creatures of all of the different national parks around the country. And they are just stunning. The whole production is stunning. But these cards, which you have 3 of laid out in front of you when you're playing the game, you're competing to sort of visit them first by gathering resources along this beautiful trail that your hikers are walking on, and you have to get these resources, and then you can visit the park and be the first one to visit that park. So they're laid out in front of you, and to me, it feels like it's like when you open a box of chocolates, like a really nice gift box of chocolates, and they all look amazing, and you just don't even know which one you want first. Like every single park is so beautiful, and you're like, oh, I want to visit that one. I want to visit that one. And that's part of the inspiration. Like you might have a season card that gets you more sunshine, or you might have an end of game goal card that gets you points for parks with trees on them, or whatever the strategy is. But I think you've also talked about this in some of your videos. Just the beauty of the parks is enough to make you want to go for it. And I really like that.
Yeah. That's what I was going to add on here. That I that's a sign of really beautiful evocative art to me. Where if I'm compelled in parks sometimes to go after the mechanical aspect of it, I happen to have these resources, I go after this park. But sometimes it just looks beautiful. I want this park in my collection, and that will dictate which resources I go after, so I can afford that park.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not always the winning strategy, but it's
fun. Yeah.
And then it's just you have a beautiful collection at the end of like what you've been able to visit. And I was reading a review, and someone said, I just decided to go for the parks that I had visited personally. And I think that's cool, and it helped him remember how many parks he'd visited in his life. And there's such an incredible resource that we have in this country, and it really is inspiring. Like, oh, I want to go see that. I want to take my kids to go see that. And this artist series, I think their tagline is, or one of their descriptions of their project was to get print nerds into the parks and park lovers into printing, into buying prints. So just mutual inspiration. And then of course, Keymaster, who always makes beautiful productions, worked with that group and made this game that isn't just beautiful for the tarot card aspect, but the entire production is amazing.
I agree. Yeah. And I'm glad you pointed that out too, that sometimes I think if you pair great art with like poor graphic design, or the rest of the components are kind of forgotten, that can detract from the art. And I'm glad that a lot of the games that we'll mention today, maybe even all of them, have attention put into all aspects of the game that helps that art really shine.
I agree.
Yeah. So that's parks at Susannah's number 5. My number 5 is and really, this is representative of this entire person's body of work. This is Ryan Laukat, and I have Sleeping Gods as my pick here. Specifically, the new version, the new shiny that I've just barely opened this up. I haven't gotten to play it yet, but this Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. And Ryan's art, it just, for me, really brings me into the worlds that he creates. I think he has a few different worlds. There's, I forget the name of his main world that he's Arzium. I think Arzium might be the name of the world. This is a different world, the Sleeping Gods world. But there's something about his artistic style. Like, it isn't photorealistic. It isn't even, I would say, a specific style. It's Ryan's style. And it brings me into the worlds, in particular with the fantastical characters that he creates. Up a little bit closer. So he has human characters in his games, but he also has like pig people and bird people, and they all seem so quirky and unique. And I want to get to know them as I'm playing the game. And he pairs that with these beautiful books in Sleeping Gods and some of his other games, these storybooks where he showcases a piece of a world that really makes me want to explore it, which is great. Like, I love that, like, the point of the Sleeping Gods games is to explore. Mechanically, everything is designed around this idea of exploration, and that the art matches with that so well, that the art makes me want to go to different places and explore it, and even look for little details within the art to as I'm like in Sleeping Gods, it's a very quest driven game where you get a little quest and it says, go northeast to help someone, but it doesn't tell you exactly where this person is. It might give you a little hints about maybe it's an island full of birds. And so you have to actually like look on the map and find an island that looks like it has a lot of birds on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to that island. So I love those little details that Ryan is able to bring forth in his art. Yeah, do you have you've played a few of his games, haven't you?
I've only played Rome, which I loved, but I have never played any of his bigger games. And I love in Rome that you do see all those characters and you find out what they were doing when they fell asleep, which is always like, there's like that great flavor text. What would you recommend as a good entry point into his world?
I think Above and Below is probably a pretty good entry point into what has become kind of his brand, these storybook driven games.
Cool.
Is
it competitive or cooperative?
Above and Below is competitive.
Okay.
Cool. He has Sleeping Gods is cooperative, but most of his campaign games are actually are competitive.
Neat.
Yeah.
I tend to gravitate to competitive. No particular reason, but that's great. Yeah. I will look into that. And the art is beautiful. Absolutely. And I love the idea of this book. That's super cool.
Yeah. I didn't want to open the actual book on camera because I'm sure there's some spoilers in there. But
yeah, for sure.
I'm excited to dive into it.
That's so great.
Yeah, so that's Sleeping Gods in general. Yeah, oh yeah. This one's brand new, but I really did enjoy playing through Sleeping Gods thanks to Ryan's art. So that's my number 5.
Awesome.
What's your number 4?
Yeah, my number 4 is Fields of Arle, Uwe Rosenberg. It's a 2-player big box, like you can see, big box game. Yeah, it is worker placement and tableau building. You're building up a farm. You have your own farm board and you have your own barn. And it's a big worker placement board where you play 4 farmers. They have little faces on them. In fact, one of the faces is Uwe himself. I don't think you can see. Well, here, that's him. So the artist is Dennis Lohausen, and he has worked with Uwe on Glass Road and Feast for Odin, and maybe others that I'm not familiar with. But this game is this immersion in 19th century, early 19th century northern Germany, where Uwe is from. And it's very similar geographically to the Netherlands. It's very marshy and wet. It's right on the North Sea. So on your farm board, you have like peat bogs that there's the art for. And when you flip them over, they're dehydrated, so they're darker. And then you harvest the peat. Yeah, then you harvest the peat off of them. And then those tiles leave, and you've revealed more space that you can farm on. So there's this really nice, almost tactile sense of the farming that you're doing. And then when you have more space, you can also build buildings and contribute. Your family can contribute to like building the church or the school or whatever the other tiles are that are available. But it's just so subtle and detailed and also funny, like that. His art always has really amazing Easter eggs. So I'll just show one of them because it makes me so happy. You're in one of the mechanics, you're building a road, and the road, if I can find it, the road is like leading to the sea, and you're able to build it by selling goods at market, which you can sell by having the right vehicles, these old beautiful wagons. But one of these road tiles has the shadow of a dragon. Why? It's just charming. And then this other one, one of the places you get to visit is Bremen. And there's that old children's story, The Musicians of Bremen, and they're on this tile. That's like the donkey and the cat. Like, it's very small and subtle. But so there's all these tiny little details in this beautiful sort of, it's not realistic, but it's childhood story realistic, or like children's book realistic. It's just a beautiful pastoral, gentle landscape that you feel like you're a part of, based in actual history. And I love it.
And this artist has worked on a lot of different Euro games, almost only Euro games that I'm aware of.
He also did Village, I think.
Village.
Yeah, and I'm blanking on some other non-UVA games. Not that Village is UVA, but yeah, very prolific. And I love his style.
Yeah. I'm looking at the artist photo right now. How I picture Dennis Lohausen is very different than what his photo.
A wonderful sort of way.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Guy. So one of the things about his works, he has he's worked on a lot of games, but when I see his art, I'm intrigued instantly because of the side of me that loves Euro games, like medium weight Euro games that's my sweet spot. And his art has become synonymous with that style of game almost, where and you're right, it is a very unique style. I don't even know how to describe it other than it looks like a Euro game to me.
But it's warm, it's inviting. Lots of Euros can feel dry, and this doesn't feel dry to me. The art helps it come to life.
Yeah. That's a great pick. Dennis Lohausen, specifically Fields of Arle. I see he did Quacks too. Quacks is one of my favorite games. I love his art in that.
Perfect.
Yeah. That is Susannah's number 4. My number 4 is I love superheroes, comic books. I especially the Marvel movie universe, cinematic universe. And so my pick for number 4 is Manny Trembley and Marvel Dice Throne. Manny has done quite a few other games, but I really like his comic book style. Like I don't know, it brings the Marvel genre to life for me in this game. He has like very precise line work in his art, and all the characters just pop off the page. I don't know how to describe why I like his art so much, but it just works for me. It just I don't know. There's just a lot of small details in it that bring it to life, and it combined with, like, it's not exactly a classic comic book style, but it's close to it. And whenever I see,
it feels like it's more in line with what we've come to expect from the Marvel movies, where it's very vibrant, very dynamic.
Yes.
But also maybe not funny. I mean, obviously the movies are funny, but not taking itself 100% seriously, and still like having gravity. I don't know. It seems like a nice combo. I have not played that game. Is it a dueling game? Is it 2-player?
It is. It can be played at higher player counts, but it is Marvel Dice Throne is primarily played, at 2 players. It's a Yahtzee style game where you're rolling some dice and you can re-roll them up a few times, and you're then using what dice you ended up with to activate one of your character's abilities. So yeah, it's a competitive dueling game with one other player. Megan and I have had a lot of fun playing, matching up these different Marvel characters that all feel unique. But they're just really, really brought to life through Manny's art.
Very cool. I know Carol from the Mill adores that game and his art. She has mentioned it a number of times to me. And I need to look into it. It's not a style of game I really have any familiarity with. So
yeah, it's kind of a genre in its own. There are a lot of these dueling style games, but combine dice and cards in this way is fairly unique to Dice Throne.
And it looks like a ton of variety, like just in that box.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is a big box with a lot of variety. You could get plenty of play even just with the same 2 characters, but it's nice to have 8 characters in the box.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yes, that's Marvel Dice Throne and Manny Trembley as my number 4.
Awesome.
What's your number 3, Susannah?
Okay, so my number 3 is so different from my last 2 picks. It's like not even funny. This is Spots. And the artist is John Bond. And okay, I just played this game fairly recently, and I immediately went out and picked it up. And it is now vying for like my most played game of the year. And the reason is it's such a simple concept and execution that it just feels like magic how it all came together. So the idea is that you are pushing your luck, rolling dice, and these dice are adorable. First of all, they all have like wonky spots on them. I don't know if you can quite tell, but they're not perfectly picked. And the reason that you're collecting and rolling dice is that you want your dogs, who you have in front of you, have a little pack. You want to put your dice spots on your dog spots. And then when you've done that successfully, you get to flip them over, and then they're in your pack, and their dice can't be lost by busting. So every card is perfect. Like every dog or pack of dogs or set of dogs makes me smile. And I play a lot of games with kids. Like that's one of my gaming groups is my family. And this game has charmed them. And like I don't want to spoil all the dogs. You should just go get this game and play it. But the art takes a really straightforward, simple, fun game and just elevates it to this, I don't know, it's like a perfect little package. CMYK makes beautiful games. They make Lacuna that I have shared with you, and they make the Fuzzies, that like stacking game of like little fuzzy balls. And they make a few other do they make Wavelength? Anyway, they make a few great games. But to me, this like art and gameplay is a perfect package.
And I love that you made this pick. It's a game that I love as well. It's one of my favorite games from this past year, and it is such a unique art style. Like it isn't trying to be photorealistic. It isn't even all that detailed. Like it's fairly, and I don't want to say simple because I know it's very intentional. It takes a lot of talent to make this type of art, but it's just like the right art for this game. There's so many other directions they could have gone that would have been probably fine, but so whoever the art director who found this artist, I think they get a lot of credit along with the artist himself.
Yes. The dogs all have personality. They're all perfectly named. That's the cards. Every card is perfect. And I'm not even a dog person. I'm a cat person. So this broke through for me. It's my first dog game.
Well, I love this pick. Spots at Susannah's number 3. I'm looking at the art on my other screen here. Great game, great art. I'm going to go a different direction with my number 3 with one of my favorite games from this year as well, another favorite, and that is Star Wars, the deck building game. This is another dueling style game where one player plays the Empire, the other plays the Rebellion. It has a lot of wonderful mechanisms that I enjoy, including a shared card row that you can interact with. But once you actually gain a card into your deck, the other player can't really take that card away from you. You've earned that card. But there's something about, and I remember, I think one of the reasons this stood out to me is when I posted about the game, someone commented on my video and said, "I wish Fantasy Flight would stop using this art for Star Wars." I really like this art for Star Wars. Like it's just realistic enough that it brings me into the world without becoming like screenshots from the movies, which some IP games do that. It probably could have worked for Star Wars, but this is like just stylistic enough that it leaves room for my imagination to fill the gaps and lets me suspend reality and take part in that world. So I welcome Fantasy Flight to continue to use this art because I think it's a great style to use for Star Wars. This semi-realistic, but plenty of imaginative art.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
This is another case I would say similar to what I was saying about Spots, where I feel like they have found the exact right style to capture this world. Oh, and the planets too. I love the planets in this game. I love art of different planets where they feel a little bit unique.
Yes.
Just the art really brings this world to life for me.
Yes. I've played Star Wars Outer Rim, and that was great and similar, if not the same artist.
Yeah, I think it's a similar style. I should call out the artist here. There's a bunch listed. Jake Murray was the first one listed. So Jake Murray might be the primary artist. It's a little bit hard to tell on Board Game Geek which one is the lead artist and which are the contributing artists, but
I agree.
Give credit to Jake Murray at least.
Cool. Neat pick.
The Star Wars the deck building game is my number 3.
Awesome.
What is your number 2 here? Different direction here again.
Speaking of photorealistic, my number 2 is let me get this on the way. It is Obsession. And Obsession, which looks like it would have looks like it would have there's a word I'm missing, art that is rendered, drawn or painted, but it doesn't. It has I actually pulled some cards and I am now they've disappeared. Cats, what
There's
did you
some
do
on
with
the
them?
screen here.
Anyway, perfect. So
yeah,
Dan Halligan making this game about Regency era British aristocracy. You're running an estate, like here you see Ponsonby, that's the estate that player is running. They have a family and they have these guests that are being invited to their estate. And he chose to use public domain photographs essentially from the earliest era of photography, the 1850s. So these are all real people. And every card, I wish I could find them because every card has wonderful flavor text. And so you can see that, I don't know.
Yeah,
one of them is a war veteran, and he always travels with his own man, so he doesn't require a servant. Or an American heiress is heir to a North Carolina tobacco fortune, and just these little details. And you see their face when they pop into your hand, and you introduce them to the table. So you have the more you play it, the more you have this association with these faces and these features. And some of them you're really happy to see, and some of them you are really unhappy to see. Like you don't want the cads, you don't want the gossips, and you recognize them. And it's just fantastic to have an actual photograph of a human, and this collection of humans that are coming to your estate and playing these games or having these debates or having these meals or whatever events you're hosting. And it feels immersive, and it feels like you can almost role play some of the events. For people like me who don't have a lot of fantasy role playing experience, it's kind of a fun way to just enter into play. And a lot of times people will, don very bad British accents and pretend to sort of tell the story of their guests. And I think it really helps that it's photographs and not drawn or painted people.
So this is an interesting category of art. I love what you said about how the photographs can bring you into this Victorian theme. A couple other games recently, Ark Nova and Earth, also chose to use photographs for their work. And with Ark Nova was the first. Obsession came before Ark Nova. It was Obsession and then Ark Nova. But when Ark Nova came out and I saw they were going to use photographs, I was a little hestant, as I think some people were. I heard some comments about it. But once I actually had it on the table, I'm so glad they used photographs for the game. It made me really feel like I was building a zoo. I already have a connection to many of these animals from seeing them in the world. And so to be able to see the actual version of that animal on the table made a big difference. And same thing with Earth. So I think it's an interesting choice of finding the right games for where photographs can actually be more immersive than a painting or a drawing.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, Obsession as Susannah's number 2 pick here. My number 2 is another one that I find it immerses me into a fantasy world, not a real world, and that is Lost Ruins of Arnak, which has a bunch of different artists. I listed all of them here. Their names are very difficult to pronounce, though. Andrzej Hrdina, Jiri Kus, Jakub Politzer, František Sedlasek, Milan Vavron. I'm sorry for mispronouncing those names, but I think you all did a wonderful job bringing the world of Arnak to life. In Arnak, the board is so vibrant and beautiful. I love exploring that world. I love the different monsters that come up, and I love look at this sea turtle. It's so beautiful. The cards, like the artifact cards and the item cards that pop up, more so than in maybe any other game, they are cards that draw me in. I want this turtle to join my crew. This war mask looks mysterious and artifacty.
Yes.
Even just the hat, like there's just a drawing of a hat, but it's just perfect for Lost Ruins of Arnak. And I think part of it that made these really stand out is that in a lot of games, including some Stonemaier games, you can save a little bit of money on art if you use the same background on multiple cards. Different foreground, like a drawing of a hat using the same background as the turtle. But if you look here, they did a different background for every illustration. I think that really brings each of these illustrations to life. So those combined with the guardians, the different locations, just fully immerses me in this world whenever I play Arnak.
What a phenomenal pick. I am regretting not putting that, not on my list, but on my honorable mentions. I haven't played it recently enough to, but the gameplay is fantastic. There's no getting around that. It's a great game. And yes, the art is stunning. I love this pick. And yeah, specifically the items and the artifacts are, yeah, they're so evocative of that place and that time and that whatever that time and place are. Right, I mean, it's a magical land, but you really feel like you are part of that adventure and venturing into the jungle and stumbling upon something that you really need that you're going to get to use. And man, I need to play Arnak again.
Yeah. It's fresh on my mind because we just recently played through the campaign expansion, which was a delight. It's a 1 to 2 player cooperative campaign expansion. We had a lot of fun playing through that. And yeah, and Megan and I love Indiana Jones. I think it captures that feel of going on an adventure.
That hat especially, and the whip.
That. Yeah, and the whip. There's whip. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a variety of artists who put together a beautiful production of Lost Ruins of Arnak. That's my number 2.
Wonderful.
We're down to your number 1. What do you have here?
My number 1 is the game we talked about back during our nature game video, and I hadn't seen it. I hadn't played it. I didn't own it. I knew it was coming. I'd seen photographs, and it absolutely lived up to everything I wanted it to be, and that is Forest Shuffle. So Mr. Fox, he's so precious. So this, the artist of Forest Shuffle is a Spanish guy named Toni Llobet, L-L-O-B-E-T. And so this is just a game entirely comprised of cards, right? So you see there, you've got trees, and then you've got primarily creatures, but there are also some things like mosses and ferns and mushrooms on those cards that fit into your tableau. There's a mushroom or 2 mushrooms, some birds. So this artist is actually he calls himself a naturalist before he is an artist, and he's contributed to, natural histories and guidebooks, and you can really see that style here. And I have so many nature guidebooks. It's like a genre of book that I love. And this really feels like you are sort of learning about a forest while you play it, but by building your own forest. And I love it. I love that there are unique, so there are five butterflies, there are 3 different kinds of bats, there are at least 3 different kinds of deer. There's all sorts of just amazing details that they've put into this. And the real beauty of this game is that it's based on the actual ecosystem of a European forest. I watched this movie this year based on a really amazing book. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees by a German forester and ecologist. And it just shows the in-depth web of relationships that exist within a forest, and how as humans, we are so dependent on the health of forests. So as I was watching this movie and they showed all these different creatures and plants that exist within the forest, it just I said out loud to my husband, this is like Forest Shuffle the movie. Like when you play this game, you feel like you are building this beautiful forest and you are really in this place. And so the art is semi-realistic. Like, I mean, it's realistic in a nature guidebook kind of way. And I love that. So it's like, if you saw, this wolf, if you were lucky enough to see this wolf in the forest, you would be able to identify that it was that kind of wolf, or that that this is a bullfinch and not a different kind of finch, that sort of thing. So it's cute, but it's also realistic, and it's just beautiful and immersive. Yeah,
it reminds me a little bit of Wingspan's art, kind of the field field guide, field book look that we were going for there. And I think you said it perfectly, that if I'm looking at my other screen here, that if you saw one of these in the wild, you would be able to identify it from the card. There's enough detail there to do that without it being photorealistic. That gap, the artist, I think, perfectly captures that gap. I love the salamander. The salamander's
I know.
really, really beautiful. Yeah. I actually, I'm so grateful for you introducing this game to me. I just played it on Board Game Arena the other day, and I have a physical copy as well. It is a beautiful game and a really fun game to play too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great decisions, tough decisions, because you've got to give up cards to play cards like Race for the Galaxy.
Yeah.
So, and then that helps other people. So very dynamic game, amazing gameplay and amazing art.
Yeah. I love this pick. 4 Shuffle at number 1 for Susannah's favorite game with beautiful art. My number 1 is another one that has a little twist on ecosystems in the outdoors, but with a little bit of a supernatural twist, and that is Everdell, where there are these anthropomorphic animals that remind me of the Redwall series that I read as a kid and that I adored as a kid. Everdell it feels like Redwall. Did I say Redwood? Redwall, the game. Yeah. And this game in particular, I would say, as much as I love all the different character art, I'm often in this game drawn to illustrations that I want to be in my village, that I want to be in my little part of Everdell, drawn to them even over the mechanisms of it, and the characters that Andrew Bosley brings to life. But the cover, I would say, is perhaps my favorite, or one of my favorite board game covers of all time. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of attention to detail that Andrew put into this. Just kind of the framing here. There's a tree here. The depth of field, the lighting. It makes me want to know more about this world while giving me a little information about it right up front. And it was enough. This cover by itself was enough to make me want to work with Andrew. And nice. That's why I reached out to him to work with him on Tapestry, because I was like, he has captured something magical here that makes me feel like there's another world. This is a gateway into another world. And then he takes me into that gateway. Because I've seen some games where you have that gateway on the cover, and then when you get inside the game, it doesn't necessarily capture that, but he does it with all the variety of characters and buildings in this game. There's some nice component decisions too. But yeah, I love how he brings this world to life.
Yep. So highly detailed and charming. Yeah.
Really, really charming. That's a word I've used recently for the Wingspan fan art pack. Charming.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Art can really charm me in games.
Yeah, it just makes spending those 2 hours or 90 minutes or however long you're spending at the table really valuable on multiple levels. So you're spending time with people, you're spending time trying to achieve something in this game, but when it's not your turn and you can just enjoy it, it's just about enjoyment.
Yeah, and I think Andrew does that perfectly in Everdell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it isn't your turn in Everdell, you're admiring cards on the table that aren't yours, and you're admiring the little village that you've created along the way. Mm-hmm. I love your perspective on art, Susannah. Thank you so much for joining me for this discussion today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what people mention in the comments, because, like you said, there are so many great games, so many great illustrations out there. Our collections are limited. Mm-hmm. Let us know, those of you who are watching this in the future, look at your shelf, pull off a game or two, and let us know why you love the art and why it brings you into the world, or even the mechanisms of that game. I'd love to know about it in the comments.